Hello everyone, welcome to the Luxury Equestrian Network spring event. Many of you are new here, so I'm going to quickly introduce myself and the network. My name is Lindsay Hunter. I am an equestrian interior designer here in San Diego, and I founded this group so that we could bring together builders, architects, designers, landscape architects, product manufacturers, and everyone, and realtors, sorry, very important, should have said that first. And everyone that works on an equestrian property. And now it's expanded to incorporating people that are supporting these professionals, like bankers and title and escrow companies and accountants, attorneys. We have trainers and homeowners that are joining us as well because they want to have access to these resources and these kind of conversations that we're having today. We are going to talk about designing for equine welfare. Normally when we talk about equine welfare, it's about veterinary care and training and nutrition, things like that. But we're going to talk about designing for equine welfare because the role of the designers and architects and builders and all the people involved in building these properties, we have a really big responsibility to design properties that take care of the welfare of the animals. We have a great group of panelists, and I'm going to read some bios on them very quickly. I would like to introduce Jessie Leland first. She's the co-moderator, and she is a luxury real estate advisor with Pacific Sotheby's International Realty, specializing in premier equestrian and lifestyle properties throughout Southern California. So thank you for being here.
Oh, and I'm on Sean Cannell's team. Yeah, I should say that.
Thank you, Jessie. She's very loyal.
And then we have Diane Korsh. Diane is the owner of the farm at Del Mar Meadows in Carmel Valley, a well-known boarding and equestrian facility she has developed and managed since 2003. Through decades of hands-on involvement in permitting, construction, and daily operations, Diane brings a practical homeowner's perspective on improving horse properties within real regulatory and environmental constraints. And then we have Kate Genese. Genese. Okay. Kate is the equestrian business manager at Capillary Flow, where she works at the intersection of performance, innovation, and sustainability in equestrian environments. Her work focuses on advanced subsurface watering systems that support consistent footing and healthier turnout conditions while reducing long-term water use, an especially important topic here in Southern California. She also brings a competitive dressage background, a strong academic foundation in health, nutrition, and exercise science. And then we have Lisa Wood. Lisa spent 35 years with the City of San Diego working on environmental policy, zoning, and permitting for major solid waste and composting facilities, including the Miramar landfill and its large-scale composting operation. Today, she continues consulting on environmental and agricultural zoning issues in the county and applies that expertise directly to horse properties through her work in composting, barn planning, and fire safety. And then last but not least, we have Sean Cadell, who's one of the leading agents in San Diego's luxury coastal and equestrian communities, known for helping clients identify properties that truly function well for both horses and their owners. With a background that combines architecture, design, sensitivity, and deep experience in the financial side of real estate transactions, Sean brings valuable insight into how infrastructure decisions influence usability and long-term property value. So we've got quite a panel. All right, so Diane, I would love to start with you and get the homeowner's perspective. We talked about the challenges that you've had with your property over a couple of decades, renovating and running into zoning and permitting issues. You have learned a lot on your own, it sounds like, because you didn't have a team of people like the Luxury Equestrian Network to help you through a lot of this stuff.
Exactly. So, they didn't even exist back then.
No. And that's actually why I said that I would come and share in the panel, because it would have been amazing. When I bought the property, I just assumed, there's horses on this property. I can have horses on this property. But it doesn't really work that way. So my property, Del Mar Meadows, is in the San Diego city limits, and that I didn't even realize either. At the time, I was pretty much a novice, and I just had a daughter that rode horses, and I thought, well, wouldn't it be better if we had the horses here on our own property? So that's how I found the property. The 56 wasn't even in when I got it, and it's right off at the 56. So it's been a learning curve of many things that I would like everybody here, if you're interested in having an equestrian property, to avoid. millions of dollars and a learning curve. So if I can help anyone, that's why I told Lindsay I would support this group and participate, because if I had a person to ask, I would have asked, but I didn't.
What surprised you the most about building?
Well, I think that because horses were on the property and you sort of decided I was going to, try and shift things around, one of my neighbors decided me moving some parts of an arena and shifting it a little bit was grading. I didn't think it was grading. I thought it's ag land. I'm farming or ranching or whatever it is I'm doing. Because I didn't know the words and the things to say, and I didn't understand the process of how big a deal that is to grade on a piece of property versus to just rearrange your arena, or how much land that you can do that on, I ended up in a code violation. And that, I think, was 15 years later that I was finally out of. My daughter went to law school before I was out of it, and she was 12 when we started it. So I'm not on this panel because I'm this amazing equestrian person. I'm on this panel because I learned all the things you don't want to have happen to you if you spend a lot of money on a piece of property that you expect to, because then you get a code violation. You really can't sell it with a code violation.
Until it's solved.
Until it's solved, right? And so that process of managing all of that, and I did get help along the way through the years to kind of get out of that issue. The bottom line is I really shouldn't have had a code violation for what I had done, but I didn't know better. So it opened me up to a development permit, a building permit, the city looking at everything with the environmental concerns on a horse property. But I did learn a lot.
How could you have avoided it?
There's a preliminary review process that the city city and the county offers, which is an excellent resource to go through if you're in real estate. If you're thinking of buying a property and you go through that process in escrow or before you make a decision to go into escrow, I think that gets a lot of the answers. The preliminary review process that I did with another property that I was in partnership with some other equestrian trainers, they had gone through the preliminary review process, but they didn't ask all the questions. And then they asked me to partner because my ranch wasn't done. So I thought, oh, okay, I'll just partner over here. And then we learned a lot more new things. I don't know how much of the story we want to go into, but we learned about MHPA, the multiple habitat over mapping over property. So anything that is ag, anything that is a large property, you have to look at whether there is something that already the city has it designated as. Just because it has that use now, once you go in to fix it up, they may decide that 25 acres is only 4 acres because the other acreage is supposed to be for the habitat.
Sometimes you don't know what you don't know.
Right, exactly.
I think that takes me to a question for Sean. We tour properties all day, every day. And it's easy to get instantly inspired by possibilities. I think if we could hear your perspective on seeing inspiration and then due diligence, and how do we marry the two? Because we want to still inspire people to have horse. We want horses to be able to live these beautiful lives on on horse property. But how do we match that with a better understanding of due diligence and what's needed to just in that process?
We call Diane. No, I think it's really important to do due diligence in advance. And even when a horse property pops up for an equestrian realtor, we should already do some investigative work on it so that we know when we have the right client for it. Because there's so many things, like Diane said, 25 acres might be only 4 usable. We were on a property today and it's 15 acres, but there's probably only 7 or 6 acres that are usable because of the habitat. So there's things that you really have to know, and it takes years and years and years to understand this. I had no business 25 years ago selling equestrian properties. I do now because I've made mistakes and I've learned from them. But you really have to do your investigative work. And like you said, doing a preliminary review with the city or the county is super important. And find out what the owners did in terms of permitting. And because a lot of the equestrian properties in Southern California were not permitted. The regulations changed over the past 20 years and it's much more strict, correct? Things that, like you said, that were, you saw, oh, there's 25 horses here. Doesn't mean you can have 25 horses there. You can stick 25 horses there, but if your neighbor complains or the county finds out, you could have to tear down buildings that you've built, move them. There's a property that we might have an opportunity to sell where some of the buildings are actually in open space. So there's things that were ignored before 1996. A lot of North County was not incorporated. And so it was managed by the county, but not really managed by the county, and records were lost, like in San Marcos, and it flooded, and there was fires, and so a lot of even the evidence is missing. So you really have to be very diligent in your search so that you're protecting your client's investment, because it could be the difference of millions of dollars in value.
So what do you do if you're going to sell, you're going to take on a listing, and then you find out that maybe there was something that is built that's in the wildlife designation, and you tell the clients, you've got this problem? I mean, then what do? They have to tear it out before they list it?
It depends. Like, as long as you disclose something and people are willing to take that on, it's fine. Some people are willing to take that on because they like the way it is now and they don't want to ruffle any feathers. We have to be really careful when you go to the county. Correct? We don't disclose addresses. We're like under the curtain.
Yeah.
So if I had this property in Olevenhain and one of the buildings is crossing the river, is that okay? So you just have to really do due diligence and ask a lot of questions, get everything that they have, but then use your title person as a trusted advisor, because they can really help you. They can go to the city for you and be very discreet.
Yeah.
So we can navigate this together.
What triggers the MHPA is the new development. So as long as if you wanted to buy one of the properties that has been used the way it's been used and you just become the new owner and you use it that way, that's not an issue typically.
Correct.
So
because no one's going to know.
No one's going to, and it's been used that way, and no one's going to come in and do an investigation on, the use that's been being used for 20 years. The moment you want to bring your equestrian builder in and put up new barns and,
even if it's in the same place.
Right. Even if it's in the same place, that is a development, that's a building permit. I love my equestrian property. So I think it's just, I wish I had some of the resources that I think this group is going to provide, and I wish I had that help earlier so I didn't have to stay. I mean, my daughter's horses, her 100 jumper horses, were not on the property all this time.
That's for 15 years.
For 15 years, yeah. So there were other horses. I could have the other horse, just trail horses. I had with the Fairmont, the Grand Del Mar, they had a trail riding there, and so I had a trail riding business that I could do, because trail riding was put in, and how you house horses that are horses for trails is very different than how you house, fancy hunter jumpers. So I just adapted and worked through it, but not everybody
can.
And then your kids grow up. Like if you're in this room and you have like a 12-year-old and you're thinking, oh, this is their sport, this is their thing, then you need to really make sure that you're on your game so that it can get done within the period of time before they have children. My grandson loves it.
So Lisa, I'd love to get you involved in this, because I think that this is something that comes up a lot. Someone buys a property and there's an existing structure and maybe it's not where it's supposed to be, but it's there. And then they get to a point where they really need to do some renovations. It might not even be safe anymore.
So you can have a little sympathy for me. I own part of the San Diego River.
Yeah, yeah, I do have sympathy.
Because habitat's not the only issue. Of course, there's steep slopes, there's, all kinds of issues that can come into play depending upon how you handle it. So, like you say, if you're not making changes, that's often the easiest scenario. And I want to just do a little bit. And by the way, I've been to your property and I know all about your property. I started in the planning department with the city in the 1980s, before there was such a thing as the MHP. Right.
She's like, I have a ticket for you.
In fact, the man who was the director of Park and Rec, because as you know, there are trails. You now know all about the trails in there, but you also know probably about cowbird issues, that kind of thing that can be associated with the trails. And the director of the Park and Rec department literally called me up and said, "Hey, Lisa, can trail horses wear diapers?"
Oh my.
I'm not making this up. I said, "Chris, don't do that. Don't do that." And I happened to have, at the time he was asking me that, I had an Appaloosa that if you put a crupper on him, he was going to go bronco on you. I'm like, don't make horses wear diapers, Chris. So yeah, you have issues on Del Mar Mesa, but I have issues on the San Diego River. So some basic planning terminology that can help you. If you're getting a building permit, I actually say, piece of cake, you're good. Because a building permit goes into the category we call ministerial. So I'm going to give you two kinds of permits that you can get. There's more than this, but for purposes of today, we're just going to talk about two kinds of permits that you may need to get. The ministerial permits, like a building permit, and the discretionary permits, like a major use permit. And there's a world of difference between the two of them. What I would have advised if you were dealing with a permitting issue and they were saying, yeah, but things have changed, a little phrase you can use that can help you out in that scenario is, but this is a pre-existing non-conforming use. You know that phrase now. That phrase can help you. It helped my next door neighbor quite a bit. He was struggling with the county planning department. And I told him, use this phrase, it's going to help you. Now, that said, sometimes my other neighbor had a pre-existing non-conforming use, and because it was, he got ratted out by a neighbor, and because it had never had a permit and it was a safety hazard, he could have, in a ministerial process, paid the money to do the paperwork and bring everything up to code, and he said, I'm not doing it, I'm tearing it down. But the good thing about a ministerial permit, like a building permit, is it does not trigger discretionary review under the Environmental Quality Act. Once you get into a major use permit, so say you want to put in a new barn, you want to board a bunch of horses, or maybe you want to put in a wedding venue on your property, okay, then you're going to have to get one of these discretionary permits. When you get the discretionary permit, now you have to be preparing an environmental document that goes out to all of your neighbors. It costs money, it takes time, and then there are a bunch of conditions that are put on it. So if you can stick with just the ministerial changes, like the building permit, you want to do that. On the other hand, if you have big aspirations for the property and you want to all of a sudden put in a wedding venue or board a bunch of horses, then go ahead and do it. Just know it's going to take time and it's going to cost you some money, and they're going to put a lot of restrictions on you, but it definitely can be done. It's being done all the time, but it's not free and takes some time and effort.
Can I ask you a question? Just because this comes up a lot, everybody wants a covered arena, and in certain parts of the county it seems super easy, in other parts it seems super difficult. I've had clients that have done it in 1 year. I've had clients that have done it in Rancho Santa Fe where someone says you can never do it, and I've also had clients down the street, same block in San Marcos, for example, where it's taken her 5 years, and they're two properties apart.
Every property is different. Absolutely. Every property is different. And depending upon, I mean, there can be, for example, with a covered arena, all of a sudden you could trigger stormwater issues because of impermeable surfaces. You can trigger all kinds of things depending upon the particular layout of the property. So it really is, I'm not going to, other than just telling you there are those two kinds of issues, there's the discretionary and the non-discretionary. Again, if you can stay with the discretionary, with the non-discretionary, you're going to be good. But anytime you're going into a discretionary, you're putting in something new, you need to get a discretionary permit. No two properties are going to be the same.
with my properties, there's a certain amount of roofing, a certain amount of coverage area. So you have to then just decide, you have a house on the property, maybe it's just you keep the house small, but you really want to have your hot walker covered, or you want to have a covered arena, and you have to, that's why if you're planning it in a big picture, you can do that. You can say what's most important. But when you've already have a property and you're trying to tweak it, and you don't want to you want to do some things and see if you can just make it a little nicer, you could get yourself into a situation where you violate a code. And knowing those codes ahead of time is really important. And one of the biggest ones, you hit on it a little bit there with the horses needing a diaper. One of the bigger ones is we are in California, not in Texas. And in Texas, they see horses as not like a dog and going to the bathroom. Their dung is considered, horse dung is like a fox who goes to the bathroom in the woods, but not in California. In the state of California, dung of a horse is not considered a native thing and is more domestic. That has become a big issue, and how that dung is handled and how it runs off into the river, which is where you have some expertise, I'm sure, it becomes a very weird thing. They took it from California all the way to the federal government at one point to say that horse manure was toxic waste. They laughed at them in the federal government because there's a lot of cowboys that are congressmen and they're like, you're out of your mind in California, but we have still kept some of that. And so they don't want horse manure to be run into the open space and then run into the rivers and the ocean.
That's what happened at Show Park.
Yes, and that's why it had to be addressed there along that edge. And they pulled us back from the riverbed there at Show Park. You were part of that too? No.
If I could interject, so the rules for horse properties in San Diego, the requirement is the manure has to be picked up twice a week. The reason for that is, and I beg to differ, I think it's extremely important, and I do it every day on my property. And the reason is, as you know, a couple of years ago, the entire county shut down because of vesicular stomatitis. There's nothing more important to your horse's welfare than your proper fly management on your property. It is extremely important, and your manure management is extremely important for the health of your animals. So with regard to the manure management, twice a week is the requirement. I do it every day. However, as anybody who is involved with horse properties know, that's a big volume, right? They go through a lot of hay, and a lot of that hay comes out the other side, and then we have a lot of volume to deal with, right? So the county and all of the local governments within the state of California are under a lot of pressure to make sure that horse manure, which can be used as a soil amendment, make sure that this usable organic resource is not being wasted and disposed of in the landfill. So there's a law, SB 1383, that requires local governments to do their best job to make sure that everybody's not just getting a dumpster and hauling it off-site. And if your customers are getting a dumpster and hauling it off-site, it's going to the landfill and it's costing them a lot of money. And there are better alternatives. And one of the things the county has done to make this easier is it has always been legal to take the organic waste from your own property, compost it, and use it on your own property. The county has even changed the zoning code so that now it is legal to take organic materials from other people's property, add it to yours, and compost that as well. And you can send the compost off-site as well. And if anybody is interested in the specifics on that, I would very much like to talk with you. There is some paperwork you have to go through. It is non-discretionary. It is ministerial. It does cost a little bit because you have to get what's called a zoning verification, and there's a little fee for that, but it can be done. You don't need to do any paperwork if you're doing it on your own horse ranch for your own organic materials, which is what I do. Now, what I do, because I have a very small place, is I make the compost by hand. And I can give you the details on how to make the compost. But for your larger facilities and for your customers that have more horses, they're probably going to want to at least use a tractor to do this. It does take a little bit of effort to make the compost, but once you've made the compost, you can use it on site, and then your disposal fee is nothing.
Evergreen Nursery used to have a spot that we could bring and we had a contract with them to bring, because then they made wonderful dirt for the community to use, and that was great.
I will brag that at my horse ranch, and one of the things we're fighting, and we're gonna move to you about the importance of footing and the importance of drainage, and one of the big assets you can use in this is compost. It is very good for your drainage and for the footing of your horses and for all of those things. So for the health of your horses and for waste management, let's not waste something that can be an important resource. So I did want to talk about composting, and also wanted to just throw in, I meant to bring it and I forgot, I like to walk around with my 3-foot-long compost thermometer because it's a lot of fun, and that's how I check to make sure that my compost is cooking, because the compost actually gets hot while the organic material is broken down. And I think it's an important, because you also mentioned we're talking about safety. I think having a compost thermometer is also an important safety issue, because any wet organic material, including hay, it can get so hot that it can start a fire. I'm a member of an organization called Technical Large Animal Emergency Rescue, long name. Technical Large Animal Emergency Rescue is a global organization, and the most common reason for barn fires is electrical. The second most common reason for barn fires is wet hay. So if any of you are designing barns where the hay is in that hay loft, Technical Large Animal Emergency Rescue hates you. Because inevitably there's a leak, and inevitably some bale of hay catches fire, and then your whole barn goes. I mean, bales of hay on top of the horse trailer can catch on fire and catch the whole horse trailer on fire. But if you've got one of these compost thermometers, you can stick it in your bale of hay. If you see that temperature going up, then you know you've got a problem. You can prevent the problem. So it's a nice safety issue. So always when you're designing these facilities, think about your safety. You want to think about your safety in terms of where you're storing your hay. You want to think about how you're going to manage your horse manure. When you're building a barn for your fancy horses, you want to make sure there's 2 egresses for every horse. The last thing, because I am a member of Technical Large Animal Emergency Rescue, and we do have wildfires in this area, I have seen it all, and I have seen horses with only one way to get out, and they have not made it out, and you do not want to be in that scenario. So, always when you're designing these things, think about these things. And also, when I've been helping evacuate horses, I have yet to show up at a ranch that has an evacuation plan. I have an evacuation plan posted on my barn, updated every year, and practiced every year. And your customers all should do that too. So your customers should be thinking about horse health, manure management, barn safety. All of these issues are things that your customers want to keep in mind, in addition to complying with all the zoning requirements and dealing with all of those.
Can I add one quick thing before? Your technology is amazing, but so I first met Lisa at a composting workshop that was hosted by the county at a large commercial equestrian facility, and I was blown away. We deal with the manure question a lot. Cost, location, feasibility for where is it going to go, how often. And so seeing how she had advised this large facility, I would recommend for all builders, designers, architects, anyone that's here to use Lisa as a resource. I got her number. I ran back and was like, I need that lady's number, like a crazy person. And sure enough, I have a client in Catalina, and he said, my number one issue right now is manure disposal. What can I do? And I was like, you got to call Lisa. So he got her out. She did a consultation. She put together a whole plan for her. I think for our architects and designers, location is key. Where's this going to be housed? If we're going to do natural composting. So just a plug for Lisa. She's helped me solve a lot of problems before they came bigger problems. That property was really neat because they had repurposed a old cow trough.
It was a historic dairy, so they had a big concrete pad. Very useful if you want to have a composting system.
So when you think about the puzzle pieces of a property, you can use her to like, hey, where could we designate this if we're going to go with a natural composting program? You know, I know some do the haul away, but just plug for Lisa.
Well, let's talk to Kate. You have an amazing system. I want to hear about that, but let's talk about turnout. I mean, we know the benefits of having turnout. It's something that we don't have enough of in California. And, you know, I moved my horse from Tennessee where he had a big pasture and he was moving all day and eating grass all year round. Even, you know, in the winter, weeds, just moving and eating moist grass all the time. And then I moved him here and I thought, well, I'm not going to put him in a box stall. He would go nuts. I did find a very large paddock and thought this is as good as it gets for California. Well, he very quickly developed ulcers and behavioral problems, and then he colicked twice. And I've had him for 9 years. And so all these problems started when we moved here. You know, I would love to have more grass for him. That's a big problem for everyone. But to find something like that, it's very challenging, and you know, or you're driving like an hour away. Talk to us about what we can do with your system where we can bring more turf, and you know, because this is a desert area. I know people don't really think about that. We're right next to the ocean, but this is desert. Talk to us about your system and how we could use it in Southern California in a desert.
Yeah, so capillary flow originated in Gulf bunkers actually about 16 years ago, doing the drainage for the bunkers, and we're the #1 company in the world for Gulf bunkers to this day. But then since then, we've moved into hydroponics. We have a system that's completely closed system using an air pump to push oxygen through the pipes, through the water consistently. So we have moving water at all times, which differs from any other system, like the ebb and flow. And we're able to grow stronger grass, keep sand arenas moist, have paddocks. We've been placed in parks as well. A big issue with horses is turnout, and that's, I think, something that happens everywhere too. At boarding facilities, you know, there's only so much turnout that you're allowed to have because they want to keep their pastures looking nice. And then, of course, in California, there's a lot of dirt and sand and just there's not enough moisture. And so what our system does is we grow the sand directly, or the grass directly into sand, which creates stronger roots underneath the system. And the constant oxygenation of the water reaching the root system makes the roots extremely strong, the grass extremely green, and we can maintain healthy grass year round.
That's amazing, because I think I tried probably 5 or 6 times in different locations on the property to create a turnout with grass.
Yeah.
And it just, you know, it looked really pretty when I'd get it started.
Yeah, no, it's really difficult.
And then
it's just, and you can have, you know, a sprinkler system, or for arenas and whatnot, you often see water trucks at competition venues, or the sprinkler guns that are at horse shows, but none of those really reach the roots first. So a percentage of that water evaporates before it ever reaches the root system, or, you know, the deep sand system in a sand arena. So our system waters from underneath the ground, which decreases the evaporation rate. We also, because it's a closed system, recycle all of the water. So we save 85% more water than any other sprinkler system. Whatever water is not soaked up by the grass or by the sand just goes back down. It recirculates with oxygen and then flows to the other side of the system. So in the long run, you're saving money. You're saving money on the water. It's an investment up front, but you're saving water. We're also looking into researching for fire resistance. I was speaking with a California firefighter last week, and he basically said, you know, if you can guarantee that your grass can stay green, it's not going to burn, it's just going to smolder, but it could protect, you know, farms and houses and whatnot. So we're looking into doing research to prove that. Yeah, we can guarantee that the grass will stay green.
Is there a size amount that you are limited to for growing it? Green grass?
Yeah.
No, I'm thinking that's big, but I'm thinking smaller.
Oh no, we can do Any
it's so-
size, yeah. Small. We do literally just golf tees as well, so it can go anywhere. It's very versatile. We're also always wanting to innovate. Our company originated in Gothenburg, Sweden, and we have a fantastic technical team there. One of our guys is mainly responsible for developing the Volvo XC60 electric car, and so he's wildly smart, and he is our lead developer for the AI system. So our technology is completely connected to AI. It's a smart system. From my phone right now, I could look at our arenas that we have across the world. I can adjust the moisture levels in them. I can see if it rains there. We have sensors in the ground as well to measure nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, pH, temperature. And we're looking into developing AI this year where we can take infrared photos of the grass as well and be able to see where it might not be so healthy, but you can't see it yet from the human eye. So it's a neat system.
And then you were talking about working on a heating system.
Oh,
Because
yes.
I was asking you about, what about in places that snow? And so you were talking about a heating system that you're working on where it could potentially melt the snow and keep the grass all year round.
We've developed a geothermal system. It's been tested in Gothenburg, Sweden, which it gets quite cold there. I was there a couple of weeks ago and it was very snowy and icy. So we have these patented water basins which are connected to our AI system and consistently moving. We're able to put water heaters into those, and then that heated water flows into the system and can heat the grass or the sand if someone wants. But that way we can keep the grass green and healthy year round. We did it on a golf course this past winter, and the difference in the grass from where it was heated and consistently watered with oxygenated water was phenomenal. So that's really exciting. We're still developing that and making sure it's foolproof and everything.
So if you have water coming from a well that is not, as it has a lot of sediment or
minerals.
salt or whatever, it's not,
Brackish.
will your system actually clean? Can you use that water? Do you have to use city water to go into your system?
You can use any water. Our system does clean itself with the air moving through. So the only place you might see the buildup is in the basins, but we've never had any issue with that. And we're currently working with a water chemist in Sweden as well to figure out exactly how to monitor that and get a hold of that. But no, our pipes stay clean. The material underneath the sand or the grass, that stays clean as well. It's a porous concrete, so the air consistently cleans it so that there won't be any anaerobic buildup. There's no algae, no black layer, which helps to maintain the health of the sand as well as the health of the grass.
So Kate flew here from Wellington, Florida. That's where their office is.
Thank you for having
and
me.
I feel like the water there probably, if there are wells, is probably rather salty.
Yeah, it's extremely salty. At our office space, we don't have very nice water there. It's really high sulfur levels as well, but we don't have any issue with the water. It can come from a well, it can come from a pond.
So as it filters through your system, it doesn't give a byproduct?
No, because it's completely closed. So any water that's coming into the system, we save as much water as possible in our gravel layer. And then we also have those basins
So you're just
that have
reusing it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then we catch any rainwater or extra water and we save that as well. So if there happens to be extra water, then we do have a drainage system for that, but that is safe and healthy water, and that can go into a pond or, a garden, something like that.
I'm imagining all of us finding that problem at a certain point with a property, whether they're buying or later or where, a certain point, like grass might come up. I could see someone reaching out to you, and when they connect you with maybe the property owner, my thought is that would there be an opportunity for you to provide like a turnout rotation depending on how many horses are at a given property and how many paddocks or square footage or acreage, like I'm just wondering if that could be part of the consultation, because I could just see like we have space constraints, we want to maximize our land.
Absolutely, that can definitely be incorporated. The grass is able to stay healthier than a lot of just typical, even, places like Kentucky that receive a lot of water. It's not as consistent of moisture levels as our system can deliver. So the grass will maintain its strength and health, but we absolutely can help with the turnout system as well. All of our arenas and paddocks and whatnot are labeled on our FlowTrack app as well, so you can see exactly which one is in use right now. You can have periods of time where you want to decrease the water, increase the water to help the grass grow a little bit more. You also can deliver fertilizer through our basins, which fertilizes the same as it waters from the ground up, which decreases runoff and delivers a more consistent fertilization to the grass. So there are a lot of options, and we're always happy to help as well.
How are your prices, because you're doing golf courses, compared to, like the systems that we have here so far, like ebb and flow and some of the other earlier?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're talking like healthy, happy horses,
Right.
Fire safety, recycling water. They don't care what it costs.
No, it's very similar to the ebb and flow pricing, but again, you have that investment of saving water and saving, the grass. You don't have to treat it as much. We also have grass tennis courts that are played on year round at the Breakers Resort in Palm Beach, and those are phenomenal. There are lessons given on it every single day, and
So it can handle a gallop.
Yeah, it can handle a gallop.
I was asking her about polo fields.
Yeah,
'cause that
no,
would be
it's
a really good
extremely
resource.
strong. My boss loves to measure grass wherever he goes. So we have a little contraption, and we always measure grass. Our shear strength, so basically the strength of the roots, you put as much force on it as you can, and then it'll measure the amount of force before the roots start to break. Our system is worlds apart from any other system.
I just want to point out there are a lot of similar issues that we're dealing with when we're dealing with the compost. One of my first consultations was with the Lakeside Polo Field, where Kip Herring was the owner there for many years, and I was giving him a hard time because he was hauling off all of his horse manure, and then he was bringing in compost to put on his polo field. Like, Kip, you see the problem here. And so I consulted with Kip, and they now compost from their own facility and use the compost on the polo field, because compost has a lot of the same. In fact, they're very complementary. You could use your system and the compost, and you have excellent water retention, excellent drainage, so
Yeah.
keep in mind, we're thinking holistically about all of these issues in terms of footing and fire safety and water retention and fly abatement and manure management and all of the above.
We like to be as sustainable as possible and ultimately put the horses' welfare first. So if we can just create any system that keeps them safe and happy and healthy and their joints feeling good, that's ultimately the goal at the end of the day.
So for Sean and your, looking at these magnificent horse properties, what's your thought for there's ebb and flow, there's all
Well, I was
weather.
fascinated because we always talk about ebb and flow in all weather arenas. And then what you're just describing now, it feels like it's one step above that, which is really awesome, because I was not aware of how high tech it's gotten besides just the ebb and flow. And every rider wants to ride every day of the year that they can here. And one of the biggest things that we're missing in almost every single, not private, but public facility where people are in, like Wildflower, for example, here in Leeuwenhoek, there's no turnouts for anybody, or there's no grass, or they're dirt turnouts like your horse. That's one of the most important things for the future of the equine society here in Southern California. So I was so pleased to hear what you were offering today, because I feel like that's the thing that's going to make a difference in our sport in Southern California, and to make a property like first class luxury property versus one that doesn't stand out with like just the dirt pastures, or where you can use this green one this week, then we're moving over here because we have to reseed this pasture space over here, which is mostly typically what we see here.
So you were telling me that a lot of people now, they're not even really looking at the house, or they're willing to do a smaller house, and because they want the pasture, they want to prioritize other things.
So a true equestrian person, actually, they don't start at the house. They start at the barn. And then they're like, oh, do you have pasture space? Because everyone's obsessed because they know how healthy and good it is for their animals and their sport horses. And like the horses cost more like over a lifetime than the house ever could cost. I feel like it's so important because people are starting down at the pasture space. They want to see the arena. They want to make sure they can ride every day. We know it's very difficult to get a covered arena here in Southern California. And people pay like years of investing into trying to qualify for a covered arena, and then $1 million to build one without the footing yet. And then we have to put in the footing. So I feel like footing is so important for the sustainability of these beautiful, expensive horses. The watering system is fascinating both for the arena and for the pasture space or any other space on a property.
One of the things is the fire department comes into your property and they say, okay, we need you this distance from here. We need to be able to get the trucks in one way and out the other, just like the horses, because the big trailers have to come in. But they also need DG or cement to ride. Well, that's now taking more of your property besides your arena, right? Everything looks like dirt. This is amazing to be able to add a little, for the sake of the horses, to be able to have grass. I mean, it is very strange. I'm from the East Coast. We have grass. And Spruce Meadows has grass. A lot of places, Kentucky has grass. It was very odd moving here and trying to figure out, desperately wanted to be able to have grass
And
on the
guess
property. What?
We have pretty people.
Yes. We do. They're healthy. Yeah.
But do you think that the county would look at that and say having this kind of turf is even better than DG at some point because it's vegetated, right?
You're going to find each scenario is going to be different. There are going to be times when they're going to say, yes, that's the way to go. And there are going to be other times when they're going to say, we've got this issue. It is always site specific. It really is. And the zoning code is very complex. There are many, many issues that they're looking at. We were mentioning fire safety. You probably know there are some new rules about how far you have to have no overhang over any structures. Okay, well, at the moment, they're not coming onto people's property and saying, you're in violation of this new law, you have to have a bigger setback. But I guarantee you, if you have to get a permit for something, now they're going to enforce it. And before you can do the repairs on your barn and get your non-discretionary building permit, you're going to have to comply with the fire ordinance and provide the setback. Keep in mind that it is very, very site-specific. Most of the horse properties are going to be in the unincorporated area. There are some in the city, right? But most are going to be in the unincorporated area. And frankly,
because my last one.
Because my career was with the city. So maybe I'm biased, but I think the cities is easier. The counties is a little bit more complex, and certainly more agricultural property in the unincorporated area, and they have so many different categories. It is challenging to figure it out, and when you're just going to your agricultural zoning, you're not hitting your multiple habitat areas, you're not hitting your steep slopes, your floodplains, anything like that. For insurance purposes on these properties, we have the high fire risk areas, and that can be an issue as well. And so anytime, even with a non-discretionary permit, the new requirements, they're going to make you comply.
And we don't want to say this as a deterrent.
No,
because she
there's
has
solutions.
a property and I have one. We both love our horse properties. So if you're interested and that's why you're here and you're talking to your realtor and you came, we don't want to be like, oh my God, this is the worst thing ever. If I had had a group like this, it would have been a different story. If I had known my builder, Brian Brower, who's back there, and I would have been able to be with somebody who already knew how to build equestrian properties and knew the rules and knew the permitting things, it would have been different. I wouldn't have gotten a code violation.
And there's so much new technology since
Yeah.
then too. So it's like what you're talking about today is like revolutionary to me. So
I'm excited about that.
Oh, I'm glad.
I told her that she needs to start at my barn and do like a sample.
They're ready for me to get an office
your
out
tester.
here. Yeah.
The most important thing with the design is the health and welfare of the horses. And there's nothing more important than having an adequate area with adequate pasture.
Yeah.
As you say, for colic, for behavior, for everything.
Well, and now my dad's moving to Tennessee, and I'm like, if you ask my horse if he wants to go back, he'll jump on that trailer. So don't tell him you're going until you're there and you're settled. Yeah. But if the trailer's passing by, he'll jump on it. Did you have any other questions? Or I'd love to open it up to a Q&A. Let's do that. Jesse.
I have so many.
Okay.
Okay, so my first is going to be about the hydroponic systems. Have you found that there are specific species of grass that do better with the system? And also, is it compatible, because you talked about fire department turnouts, with the certain fire department vacuums, underlayments that you can do for turf? And then my second question is for the broader panel. We talked a lot about grandfathered properties and structures, or pre-existing
Non-conforming use.
Is there a short list of questions that we as designers or realtors and potential property owners can ask to kind of identify who we need to put on that team?
As far as the grass mix goes, there's no specific type that does better because we cater the water levels to whatever type we use. We think about the climate and the use as well. So for example, our grass tennis courts in Palm Beach, they have a mix of 3 different types of grasses. Meanwhile, we have a derby field meant for horses for jumping in West Palm Beach or Wellington, which just has zoysia grass. And so it really just depends on the climate. We did a different grass type in the Hamptons. We have grass tennis courts, and then we're looking to put another in California, actually. So it really just depends on the climate. We have our warm weather grasses and our cold weather grasses, and we have a grass expert on our team as well, who is fantastic at choosing the grass type for the event that you want to be using it for, and for the overall health of the arena. And then your question about firefighters.
So there's some turf underlayments you can use their baffles that are actually fire truck rated. And so I was curious if you've done any integration with your system where it is continuously closed system watering the grass, but you also incorporated the drivability for fire truck rating.
We have not yet, but I would be very interested in talking to you about that. No, we just recently started looking into the research for it and talking to, firefighters about it. But no, I'd love to learn more about that. And I think it definitely would be possible. We're always wanting to get to improve our system and improve everything about it. We want to work with the client wherever they are.
Well, where a fire truck goes is also where a horse trailer can go. It would be great on the property if you have limited space to be able to have grass and have an ability to have the drivability.
It'd be beautiful.
It would be beautiful.
Yeah. No, you can drive on it. Yeah.
In terms of the health and welfare of the horses, the access for the emergency equipment is key. It's, so thinking about how you're going to put your infrastructure under where those heavy trucks are coming in. In my case, I have one of those huge, I don't know how many gallon water tanks that they can attach to the fire truck and fill up from my groundwater when they're fighting fires. My valley did burn in 2003, came close in 2007, but didn't burn. And we had a pretty big fire in my valley last summer. And I evacuated my horses in the wildfire then. So thinking about the firefighting access on the property is one of the important considerations. Now, in terms of, you said, who should be on the team when you're thinking about this thicket of, again, everything, it depends. I'm sorry, in my world, everything depends. It depends. If they're buying an existing property and they're not changing any uses, maybe don't even worry about it, right? But the minute you're going to put some changes in, the minute you have cranky neighbors, if you have a pre-existing non-conforming use, you can have a problem. At a minimum, for any property, go down, check out the zoning, any specific restrictions that show up. There's a little fee for that, but it's not much. And the people at the zoning counter can be very helpful. So you can always start with that. A little one-stop shop. The county's new offices are lovely. Their old offices were a dungeon, but the new offices in Kearney Mesa are very nice. The zoning people can provide for a very small fee a lot of information on the property. So for any property, do that. And then depending upon what they want to do, what you find when you go to the zoning counter, you might want to go up from there. So I've been retired for 6 years now. I just do a little bit of consulting. But before I retired, I was managing big, ugly projects with more permits than you can ever think about. I was doing the big, ugly ones. And there's a lot of strategy to it. And if you hire a consultant and say to the consultant, take care of it, it's really not going to get taken care of. You have to have somebody on there that really cares and really wants to carry that ball. Otherwise, how many years did you spend?
15.
Yeah, 15.
Yeah.
And I had to stay, every time I'd walk on the property, I'd be like, okay, that's it, I'm done.
There are experts that you can hire that can help with, for example, if you do have to do an environmental impact report, there are people that you can hire to prepare your environmental impact report and provide all the distribution that the county requires for that kind of thing. You really need to have a project manager on there, just like with any real estate deal, that really is focused on getting across that line, because it can languish very easily if you're just waiting for the agencies to tell you what to do.
Lisa gave me some good advice with a complicated property that had some things. And one of your pieces of advice was there has to be a quarterback. Sometimes it's the property owner, sometimes it's the architect. So I think however you make up the team, know who's the quarterback that's pushing the deadlines, holding the team accountable. Hey, this has to get reported back. And that was so helpful, because there was a time where I was the quarterback, but got to the kind of end of my rope expertise wise, like with horse use, and handed it over to an architect that's back there that maybe didn't expertise in his area. Yeah.
If I could have had my architect, the builder together in the beginning parts, because you need to have people that actually understand the equestrian design and what.
And there's not that many that do.
And there aren't that many. And so that's a problem. There's a lot of people that maybe understand building a house, and maybe the property already has horses, so let's just,
make the barn pretty.
Exactly. And that doesn't work, because you really need to have somebody that knows what can fit and has already done it a few times.
Even just unincorporated area versus urban area, there are a lot of people that don't know how to deal with a leach field. There are important things that you need to know when you're dealing with an equestrian property that are not common knowledge.
Yeah, I had to abandon those. So, I had some of these things on my property, but because it was within the city limits, having septic, having a well, all those things, these are things that were already built into the property, but you have to come to a point where you're like, okay, they don't want that anymore, so let's regroup with those are big expenses. So if you have somebody early on that knows how to manage that, I think, yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
We got some quarterbacks right there.
Quarterbacks. There's a whole bunch of quarterbacks in the back, right?
Yeah. Any more questions?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if this will be for Sean or maybe for Linda, the owner.
Diane.
Oh, Dave.
Sorry. Lost her name. We fund loans on luxury real estate, especially equestrian properties. And one of the things that we scrutinize quite a bit is who is the buyer. So oftentimes someone says, hey, my kid wants a pony and we're going to go buy this horse property as a second home, without really thinking through the maintenance and all the things that you described. Like, is there a resource for somebody who maybe doesn't have that experience of owning equestrian property, maybe your crew, to be able to well before all of this thoughts, like I'm thinking of buying one in an initial phase where they could do some research other than Google.
I think having an agent that understands equestrian type of property is super important, because otherwise you wouldn't know the questions to even ask. Most agents don't know if they haven't been involved in the industry for a really long time. So I think having a qualified agent that understands that you can use as a resource as well.
Also, I would recommend, especially for somebody that's kind of a neophyte, definitely contact their agricultural district. The agricultural districts not only know a lot about a lot of different equestrians and orchards and all that kind of thing, they also know about grants, subsidies, things like that. I would highly recommend a consultation with an agricultural district.
And you're a member of the network now, so use us for resource.
Welcome, you guys.
You're welcome. Yes. Any other questions?
Yes, question for Sean. When you have an owner that's inexperienced walking into or trying to purchase one property, especially if they're out of the area, what kind of a team do you build in terms of advisors to help them answer those questions and do that initial research to help avoid situations?
That's a really good question. I wish I would have known you before, so I'm very happy to get your card today. Using your title person first to understand, and having a representative that understands how to go down to the county in Kearney Mesa. I send somebody down there almost every couple of days to ask questions for me, even though I think I know the answer. I may or may not know the right answer. And then really just looking at magic wand.
I was like,
You're on the air.
Did
You're on
you
the
know
air.
you were glowing?
You hold that.
I'll take care of it.
We should allow you to hear comment and go off.
You're going to have a whole team, a consultant that knows the correct things to do, a builder that's done it before, architect that's done it before, a landscape architect that's done it before, realtors that have done it before, that have the right title people that can ask the right questions down at the county. I think it's like everything combined. No one can do this alone, or should.
Well, saying that, the reason I did it was because I thought I was going to save money.
Yeah.
My daughter wanted to have a horse.
It didn't.
And I thought, well,
It
I
cost
could
you
have
millions.
Yes, I know, but I thought other people could barn at my place, and then that would be a way she could have a horse.
supplement.
And I'm sure there might be some people out here that think, oh, that's a great idea, but you don't want to go into it with that naivety. It is a little too complicated. We're not in Kentucky. We are not in areas where you can just have a horse ranch easily.
So for example, your architectural team, you guys have expertise building all around the country. So just getting local experts in that community that understand like what's possible, what's not possible, and have the correct advisors they can lead you to.
Land use attorneys, everybody.
Yep.
But I think the architects and the builders have to work together from the
100%.
beginning. You can design the most beautiful place here, and then if you don't have the builder and a consultant to say, oh, that's not going to be allowed, that's a problem, because we know we want the beautiful design and we want the usability of the property, but if you're not going to be able to have that coverage for the covered arena, and they insist on that being an important piece, you need to know that going in.
Good. I want to kind of piggyback on that. We're owner reps, as you mentioned, and so putting ourselves in your shoes, right? You're going to build this. You went through all that, and so I've been on a project for the last 5 years, in the design and now building. And as an owner rep, I heard you kind of jump to, we need an architect and a builder, and right away, it's like anything else. Do you have experience with horses? Do you have experience? And so by the time we get involved and you have an architect or even a landscape designer, it's like, yeah, we plant grass all the time, and we know what to do with the composting. You find out they really don't.
And there's a well there, so we have water.
Yeah, water. Yeah.
That can be scary because I talked to another owner rep that was telling me about a project that the landscape architect specified plants that were toxic to horses.
Yeah.
And then once that was discovered, then the owner flipped out and said, hold on, all stop. Who's on the team and who knows about horses? What's happening here? And they had to restructure the whole team. I think that, yeah, a lot of people just think, oh, I know plants. There's so much more that goes into landscape design and architecture that even just like the flow of the project.
Just no oleander. that horses die. Yeah. And it's everywhere all over California, by the way.
No, but they also think about like the site planning. And so, I was just recently at a facility where there was show jumping going on, and there was the arena, there was a driveway to the main facility, and then people are crossing the road. So then there are people there directing traffic so that the horses can go from the warm-up arenas. And then they're going across pavement, and it was such a mess. I'm like, who designed this layout? I'm not a horse person.
Not any of us.
Not any of us. No, they did not call us, so that's their loss. But yeah, you have to think about all of those things. It's not just like let's pick out some plants and make it pretty. We need the owners reps
But we
to
do
be
need
the
we do
quarterbacks.
need equestrian facilities, because otherwise then we don't have horses in the area. So that
Which would change our whole environment.
I mean, all of Del Mar Mesa, where my ranch is, was designed, as you mentioned, with horse trails. Now people do mountain biking on them, but they were designed as horse trails because there were so many horse ranches up in Del Mar Mesa. It's also an area that has, fire potential issues, because that's an absolutely beautiful mesa of protected land. That's where our biggest area is of MHPA, which we mentioned earlier. And all this area was designed for horses to travel on those trails. Well, there's no horse ranches connected to it anymore because it became too hard to make them so that they fit in the other rules that they had. So I think it's hard work, but when you have a group like this, they can talk about it and plan, and you can get ideas. Like, I have a question for you as soon as we're done about the manure and Miramar, because they keep telling me my manure needs to go to the.
You need to compost it.
You need to compost it.
We do. We need to figure it out. Right.
But we want to save the equestrian community that we have here because that's what makes San Diego County really special. Los Angeles County and Orange County have lost the majority of their horse parks and horse properties to development, and we're lucky that ours are still being maintained, but we almost lost our Del Mar Horse Park.
Yeah.
And we had to save that, and it was due to environmental issues, supposedly, which may or may not have been true. We met with the 22nd Agricultural District 2 weeks ago, and they saw what we do and how the park is used, and they're all in and say, like, they're all going to vote unanimously to save it instead of converted to low-cost housing or a hotel. We want to maintain what we have because it makes North County, San Diego, or any part of the county.
This issue is going on in the south part of the county right now in Bonita Valley. Historically, an equestrian area. I mean, it's steeped. It goes all the way back to before California was a state. It was an important equestrian area. The major park that a lot of the equestrian facilities and a lot of the trails and so forth are in, the park is actually in the unincorporated area, but it is owned by the city of Chula Vista. And so the city of Chula Vista has proposed taking the equestrian facilities and turning them into ball fields. So this is the kind of encroachment into that is inevitable as the urban areas expand. Not only am I somebody who has equestrian property myself, but I'm also a trail advocate. And so it's the same issue with protecting trails. I'm also a member of San Diego Trails Alliance, and we do as much work with the mountain bikers as we can, because San Diego Trails Alliance is old ladies, and mountain bikers are young men. Yes. And they are very politically active, too. So you want to make allies where you can for the open spaces, for the kind of rural lifestyle that equestrian facilities want, but that you have allies from the mountain bikers who may live in the urban areas, but they will help you protect the open spaces, too.
Thank you guys so much. I did want to mention our sponsors today as well. American Stalls, they are a luxury stall manufacturer. I want to thank the Inn as well for hosting us. And then I want to introduce David Moya. He's back here, the videographer. He's a sponsor as well. And let me read this little blurb about him so you know who he is. David helps people close the gap between the value they bring and the way the value is seen, felt, and understood in the market. David helps real estate agents, team leaders, and growth-minded professionals turn their expertise, identity, and market presence into media that actually supports business growth. This is strategic brand growth through the integration of mindset, message, and media. So thank you, David.
And I'll do a shout out to David too, because he does most of my video work too, and puts me on forums, and he's a man of good mindset and is full of gratitude. So thank you, David.
Thank you, everyone.